Hello. Today's episode number 54 of the Professor Slots podcast discusses my 2019 online resource for slots players, now starting its third series of 56 weekly state-by-state posts. Plus, in this episode, I'll be covering the current state of slot machine casino gambling in the great U.S. states of South Carolina and South Dakota. Thank you for joining me for the Professor Slots podcast show. I'm John Friedel, and this is a podcast about slot machine casino gambling. It is where I provide knowledge, insights, and tools for helping you improve your slot machine gambling performance. In case you missed it, on my last episode, I provided my tribal casinos overview, 11 things you need to know about tribal casinos. Further, I reviewed Puerto Rico and Rhode Island slot machine casino gambling in 2019. I hope you enjoyed listening to my last episode as much as I enjoyed making it for you. Remember to visit professorslots.com/subscribe to get my free report revealing the top 7 online resources for improving your gambling performance, including the one I've used as a top-tier slot machine casino gambler. Let's start with the first episode of the show, Online Resource, a state-by-state slot machine casino gambling series. This online resource for slots enthusiasts offers state-by-state slot machine casino gambling summaries. Here you'll find a quick synopsis and links to 56 weekly articles I've written on each U.S. state, territory, and the federal district. If you'd like to learn more about what each state has to offer before spending your hard-won cash playing slots at one of its casinos, then you've come to the right place. Every week since mid-2017, wow, has it been that long? I've written an article describing the gaming industry in a specific U.S. state, territory, or the federal district. I decided to take on this weekly project because of the dynamic changes in the gaming industry sweeping the nation. It took me 56 weeks to write 56 weekly articles, one post for each U.S. state, territory, or the federal district. I finished the first series of weekly articles, Phase 1, during which we learned a lot about playing slots anywhere in the U.S. To be of immediate use as an online resource for slots players, this first series focused on relatively straightforward questions, including relevant legal statutes on gambling, slot machine private ownership, state gaming commission, and gambling establishments. In July 2018, I started publishing Phase 2. I started this second series of 56 articles in late July 2019. I finished this second series of 56 articles in late July 2019. Once again, we learned a lot about the changes taking place in each U.S. state, territory, and the federal district in slightly more than a year. This second series was not only an update of development in the last year for each state, but also an expansion into the limited areas of focus of the first series of posts. Phase 2 includes additional information such as top 2 casinos, including any international gambling boat options, a list of all non-tribal casinos, a list of all tribal casinos, alternative gambling options such as neighboring states, available payout returns, including legal limits and statistics, and an annual progress summary for that state. With the development of these 2 series, Phase 1 and Phase 2, you have a valuable online resource for state-related gambling questions. Having twice written weekly posts for each U.S. state, territory, and the federal district, our online resource for slots players is now in its third series. This Phase 3 will again update each state after 56 weeks have passed since its last review. The second series expanded on the areas of focus of the first series. Phase 3 will expand upon the first 2 series. Expanded areas and topics of interest for the third series will be a statewide map with casino locations shown, Facebook group community for each post with regular updates, analysis of gaming industry competition with its neighbors, infographics. This is under development. I plan to put in uses of gaming revenue, historical gaming statistics, and a pie chart or 2, one of which will depict the types of casinos available in that state. And I'm also looking at having an online real money slots overview for that state. To help build a community for slots enthusiasts within each state, I've created 56 Facebook groups, 57 including the one that covers the nation and the world. These 56 groups are where I hope each state's players will discuss casinos and slots on an equal footing. I created these communities because a quick email survey of my audience came back overwhelmingly positive for having state-specific slots communities. While Facebook groups are perhaps not ideal in the long term, and not everyone uses Facebook, it seems to be most accessible to all. We may need to move each community elsewhere someday, but we should be able to use this tool from Facebook for as long as it remains convenient. Each of the 56 slots communities is linked to the U.S. and International Professor Slots Enthusiasts Facebook group, of which we already have 35 members, at professorslots.com/FBG. This is an easy-to-remember shortcut that'll take you directly to the Facebook group. This overall group is for topics of conversation, if needed, which extends outside of only a few states. I intend these slots communities be a way for my audience to directly communicate with other members in the state where they are interested in playing slots. I'd been providing my email and voicemail phone number for some time so that you could reach me to ask questions, and many of you have done so. However, a few weeks ago, Angel from the state of New York suggested other audience members might like to connect and perhaps talk about their local casinos and maybe even meet there. As I said, there wasn't any way to do that, so I created one. Well, I've created 57 Facebook groups to help state-specific audience members to chat with each other about slots. However, in general, Facebook can sometimes be a bit of a hostile environment. To help prevent this, if possible, I've set up each question which you must answer when joining one of these groups. Here's the question. No political, business, or profane posts are permitted in this slots community. Do you agree to this? Also, each Facebook group slots community currently has 4 rules. Here they are. 1. Be kind and courteous. We're all in this together to create a welcoming environment. Let's treat everyone with respect. Healthy debates are natural, but kindness is required. 2. No hate speech or bullying. Make sure everyone feels safe. Bullying of any kind isn't allowed, and degrading comments about things like race, religion, culture, sexual orientation, gender, or identity will not be tolerated. 3. No promotions or spam. Give more than you take to this group. Self-promotion, spam, and irrelevant links aren't allowed. 4. Respect everyone's privacy. Being part of this group requires mutual trust. Authentic, expressive discussions make groups great, but may also be sensitive and private. What's shared in the group should stay in the group. Finally, I've selected each to be closed groups. This means only members can see anything on it. It is not searchable to non-members with or without a Facebook group. To be clear, if you are a member of the Indiana slots community, nobody in the neighboring Illinois slots community will see your posts or even know you've posted. Again, let's see how this experiment goes. Frankly, it may or may not work out. Despite an over 80% combined yes and maybe responses from the survey I sent out, people may not want to build a state-specific slots community. Another way it might eventually fail is if Facebook starts changing the rules like they already have for Facebook pages and even personal profiles. In case you weren't aware of this, Facebook used to share posts and comments such that they would automatically appear in the news feeds of many other Facebook members. Even videos were shared automatically widely within Facebook. However, then Facebook decided they needed to make an incredible amount of money, so they stopped doing that. Yes, your Facebook page post can still be shared if you pay for advertising. Otherwise, not so much. And videos are only watched by 30 people instead of the thousands that used to find it in the newsfeed and chose to watch it. This is the path which Facebook is on, and now they are trying to encourage Facebook groups. If they are successful, and I'll use my pattern recognition ability here, then they will eventually severely limit access by requiring some sort of payment, either from me or you. Social experts agree it's only a matter of time. But we have some time. Again, let's see how this goes over the next year. If it is wildly successful, and I think it might be, then we'll deal with Facebook changes as they arrive. I even have a plan on how to adjust, so everybody can keep communicating, but I'll implement that only if it's needed. I just want you to know in advance that the experts expect Facebook to do what it does, and that whatever happens, we'll be okay. For now, and for 1 to 3 years, we're good to go. Finally, be aware that we're just starting. These communities have just been created. When you join, it might just be you and me until the word gets out. Some states or territories might never have much of a community. I'm looking at you, American Samoa. So join the state community or communities that relate to your needs. But you and I might be the only ones there at first. You may want to ask your casino friends to join if you want to plan your next casino trip together or even just keep in touch with a new gambling acquaintance. Remember to visit ProfessorSlots.com/subscribe to get my free report revealing the top 7 online resources for improving your gambling performance, including the one I've used as a top-tier slot machine casino gambler. Up next is the second segment of the show on slot machine casino gambling. Here I provide a brief overview of the current state of gambling in 2 U.S. states, territories, or the federal district, emphasizing, by far, anything of interest to slot machine casino gamblers. Up first is South Carolina slot machine casino gambling in 2019. Here goes. South Carolina slot machine casino gambling consists of 2 gambling boats offering short day trips to international waters. South Carolina has no land-based casinos. The minimum legal gambling age in South Carolina depends upon the gambling activity. For land-based casinos, poker rooms, and pari-mutuel wagering, it is not available. But for bingo and the lottery, it is 18. The minimum legal age for cruise ship casino gambling in South Carolina is 21. Casino gambling is illegal in South Carolina. Gambling boats docked in South Carolina must sail to international waters before gambling can commence. Next up is a usually short statement about slot machine private ownership, which I have included in case you live in this U.S. state and are considering owning a slot machine. Here it is. In South Carolina, it is illegal to privately own any slot machine. South Carolina does not have a state gaming commission as casino gambling is illegal. South Carolina is the most restrictive state after Utah with regards to gambling. However, with a state-approved license, bingo exists for nonprofit organizations under certain restrictions. South Carolina also offers a state lottery. In this section, I'll discuss South Carolina gambling establishments. There are 2 cruise ships available in South Carolina for 5-hour-long gambling trips to international waters. Also available are multi-day cruises to international destinations. Casino-style gambling day trips to international waters are available via 2 luxury yachts operated by the Big M Casino in Little River, not far from Myrtle Beach. 2 luxury yachts are available called Ship 1 and Ship 2, having an optional all-you-can-eat buffet. The ships cruise year-round. Otherwise, Carnival Cruise Lines has multi-day cruises to various international destinations out of Carnival Cruise Port in Charleston. My understanding of the enterprise of gambling boats sailing to international waters for a few hours several days a week is that it's a very tough business. While gambling in international waters doesn't require a state gaming license, operating a large boat at sea does require a team with a certain skill set. Add to this operation so many passengers and their needs, including food preparation, service, alcohol, and restroom facilities, and you begin to see the difficulties. No, not even if I tell you that the fee for a trip is around $12? This income doesn't include gaming revenue by the boat, of course. Nevertheless, it's a big operation, all right. I saw daily gambling boats heading out to sea for day trips while visiting Florida in the Cape Canaveral area. When I compare the size of these long 5-story vessels in Florida to the shorter-length 3-story vessels found in Charleston, the South Carolina gambling boats are perhaps half the size. Of course, size hardly matters. These are businesses, and, as indicated by Victory Cruises in Cape Canaveral still being open, the gambling boat to international waters business is good in Florida. I wonder, how's the gambling boat to international waters business out of Little River in South Carolina doing? Of course, they don't get the same level of business as Victory Cruises, it being so close to Orlando, but then the Big M boats are half the size. Perhaps they're doing okay. I hope so. I just hear it's a tough business to be in, which I believe. The Catawba tribe of South Carolina is the only federally recognized American Indian tribe in this state. The Catawba Indian Nation has not negotiated a tribal state gaming compact. Therefore, South Carolina does not have any tribal casinos. As an alternative to enjoying South Carolina slot machine casino gambling, consider exploring casino options in a nearby state. Bordering South Carolina is, to the north, North Carolina, to the east, the Atlantic Ocean, to the south and west, Georgia. To visit any of my articles on these U.S. states, simply visit ProfessorSlots.com followed by its 2-letter postal designation. For example, my North Carolina slots article is available at ProfessorSlots.com/NC. Slot machine gambling is illegal in South Carolina, so neither payout return limits exist nor are payout return statistics available. Over the last year, there has been no change in the gaming industry of South Carolina. Remember to visit ProfessorSlots.com/subscribe to get my free report revealing the top 7 online resources for improving your gambling performance, including the one I've used as a top-tier slot machine casino gambler. Up next is the second state comprising this episode segment, South Dakota slot machine casino gambling in 2019. Here goes. South Dakota slot machine casino gambling consists of Deadwood's 25 casinos, as well as 11 tribal casinos spread throughout the state. While not offering slots, there are 1,347 bars and taverns with video lottery terminals with poker, keno, blackjack, and bingo. South Dakota established a minimum payout return limit for slot machines at its Deadwood casinos. Further, monthly payout return statistics are publicly available. Neither are publicly available for tribal casinos. The minimum legal gambling age in South Dakota depends upon the gambling activity. For land-based casinos and poker rooms, it's 21. For bingo, the lottery, and pari-mutuel wagering, it's 18. The casinos located in the city of Deadwood must follow state gaming regulations. Children may accompany their parents to most casinos until 8 p.m. South Dakota is the only U.S. gaming jurisdiction allowing minors to be present while their parents gamble. The tribal casinos located throughout South Dakota must follow the gaming regulations in their negotiated and approved Tribal State Gaming Compact. Among other items of interest, these compacts limit the number of slot machines at a casino. This limit changes based on how long the compact has existed. For example, the proposed Class 3 gaming compact between the Oglala Sioux Tribe and the state of South Dakota calls for 500 gaming machines at the effective date of the compact, 600 gaming machines after 2 years, 750 gaming machines after 4 years. South Dakota also has 2 pari-mutuel facilities with horse racing during the spring season, but do not offer slot machines at them. An additional facility offers simulcast and dog racing. Regarding slot machine private ownership, it is legal to privately own a slot machine in the state of South Dakota if manufactured before 1941. The South Dakota Commission on Gaming regulates casino gambling at the casinos located within the city of Deadwood. Each tribe in South Dakota, with a negotiated and approved tribal state gaming compact, must establish its own tribal gaming commission. There are 9 such tribal commissions. The South Dakota Department of Tribal Relations provides oversight to casino gambling at the tribal casinos of South Dakota. The state also has a South Dakota Lottery Commission. Finally, in 1989, South Dakota was the first state to offer video lottery terminals. Regulation of video lottery terminals at bars and taverns is the responsibility of the South Dakota Lottery. Each retailer can have up to 30 machines per gambling license with a limit of 3 permits per operator. There are currently 1,347 such operators. To me, it's interesting that South Dakota was the first state with VLTs. For some reason, it's hard for me to remember that South Dakota has any other gaming than that found in the town of Deadwood. I'm not sure why. If I were to blame anyone but myself for this shortcoming, it would be Hollywood, right? All those westerns set in Deadwood. I think I've hit on the correct explanation. For me, anyway. There are 25 non-tribal casinos in Deadwood, 11 American Indian tribal casinos, 2 pari-mutuel racetracks without slot machines, and 1,347 retailers with a total of 8,946 video lottery terminals in South Dakota. The largest casino in South Dakota is Royal River Casino and Hotel in Flandreau, having 386 gaming machines and 10 table games. My apologies if I mispronounce Flandreau. The second largest casino is Silverado Franklin Hotel and Casino in Deadwood, having more than 360 gaming machines and table games. As usual for a long list of casinos, you can find them at professorslots.com/SD. Residing in South Dakota are 9 American Indian tribes. Each of these federally recognized tribes has successfully negotiated a tribal state gaming compact. Again, as usual for long lists of casinos, the 11 tribal casinos in South Dakota are listed for you at professorslots.com/SD. As an alternative to enjoying South Dakota slot machine casino gambling, consider exploring casino options in a nearby state. Bordering South Dakota is, to the north, North Dakota, to the east, Iowa and Minnesota, to the south, Nebraska, and to the west, Montana and Wyoming. To visit any of my articles on these U.S. states, simply visit professorslots.com followed by its 2-letter postal designation. For example, my North Dakota slots article is available at professorslots.com/ND. South Dakota gaming regulations have set a minimum payout return of 80% during the expected lifetime of a slot machine at Deadwood casinos. The gaming division of the South Dakota Department of Revenue provides annual reports, which include the annual player win percentage for all Deadwood casinos. For fiscal year 2018, beginning in July 2017 and ending in June 2018, it was 90.34%. At least 11 months after the most recent fiscal year has passed, the State Gaming Commission reports a monthly casino hold percent for individual slot machine denominations at Deadwood casinos. Recall that player win percent equals 100% minus the casino hold percent. For example, the most recent month of June 2018 reports for the 3,316 slot machines in Deadwood casinos to be penny slots, of which there are 2,388 units, 90.66%, of which the penny slots are over 70% of all slot machines in Deadwood. Nickel slots, of which there were 115 units, 89.98%. That's the lowest. Dime slots, of which there are 6 units, 92.02%. Quarter slots, of which there are 203 units, 90.84%. 50-cent slots, of which there are 11 units, 92.66%. That's the second highest. Dollar slots, of which there are 274 units, 92.91%. That's the highest. $5 slots, of which there are 74 units, 91.03%. $25 slots, of which there are 7 units, 90.63%. That's the second lowest. Just looking at this list, and I know that it's a year old, you might ask me, which one do I recommend playing? I recommend playing a dime slot. There's only 6, and they average at 92.02%. If having statistics from a year ago matters, then you should be able to find a high-paying dime slot. It would be much easier. I know that the 50-cent slots are even better. There's only 11 units, twice as many as dime slots, and their percentage is 92.66%. That's the second highest. But just consider trying to find the 92.91% of the highest payout return dollar slots when there's 274 dollar slot machines. How are you going to find which one is going to be high? The 11 50-cent slot machines and the 6 dime slot machines have high payout returns, and there's few of them. So you are much more likely to find them. That's just my thoughts on how to win at Deadwood Casino slot machines. At the request of the South Dakota Lottery, Independent Gaming Labs created the odds of winning at each video lottery terminal game, none of which include slots. Instead, available games are Video Poker, Video Keno, Video Blackjack, and Video Bingo. In Deadwood, over the last year, the Best Western Hickok House has changed owners and is now the Hickok House. Remember to visit ProfessorSlots.com/subscribe to get my free report revealing the top 7 online resources for improving your gambling performance, including the one I've used as a top-tier slot machine casino gambler. Sometimes I have a brief programming update, and this time I do. Perhaps it was you that asked that I create an audio version of my book, Learning to Win: How to Make a Profit at Slot Machine Gambling. Well, I listened to you. These last 2 weeks, when I probably should have been working on my next podcast episode, I was instead working on that audio book. All the chapters have been recorded, and at this moment, I've finished editing the first 5 chapters. I've got another 30 hours of editing to go, which means I'm still a couple of weeks away from being done. It looks like the final audio will be 7 to 9 hours long for the entire book. I'll send out an email to my list as well as mention on a podcast episode once it is released and accepted by Amazon. You are on my email list, right? If so, you'll be the first to know once it's available. If not, don't miss it and sign up now at ProfessorSlots.com/subscribe. Doing so will also get you my free 1-page report with 7 online resources for slots players. Otherwise, you may have noticed some improvements in this podcast episode's audio quality. Does it seem better? It should, a little bit, because recording the audio book required that I up my game somewhat in terms of audio recording and editing software. This podcast is benefiting from that relatively expensive upgrade. Finally, I've been working hard on improving my YouTube channel. It has received the least attention of anything I've done with regards to my Professor Slots business, but that will soon be changing. A lot of work is taking place behind the scenes, but I'll be sure to update you once I start releasing more videos. Thanks for your indulgence and patience with this quick update. Now let's get on with closing out this episode. Recently, I was interviewed on the television evening news for ABC 27 in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania by anchor Dennis Owens. We discussed the low payout return percentages seen from their local Hollywood casino at Penn National. I'd like to welcome new listeners to the show from Eastern Pennsylvania, thanks to that interview. If you're interested in watching this short investigative news report, use ProfessorSlots.com/ABC27 or find it on the As Featured On section towards bottom of my homepage at ProfessorSlots.com. I'll also be sure to include a link to it in my show notes for this episode. Either of these will take you directly to the video and article on their news website. Part 1 of the next episode of the Professor Slots podcast is not yet determined. I really need to get ahead of these podcasts, don't I? Don't answer that. It was a rhetorical question. In any case, I feel relatively confident that it won't be long before I release the next podcast episode. To make a suggestion or ask a question which might end up as a blog article or on a podcast episode, email it to john@professorslots.com, where John is spelled Jon, or by calling 702-90-SLOTS to leave a voicemail. Part 2 of the next episode of the Professor Slots podcast are more brief overviews of the current state of gambling in 2 U.S. states, territories, or federal district. Next time, I'll be talking to you about the great U.S. states of Tennessee and Texas. That's the end of another great episode of the Professor Slots podcast. Thanks so much for listening. Show notes for this episode are now available within most podcast apps, but are also available on my website at professorslots.com/E54. I plan to have the next episode come out very soon for you, where I'll have more amazing content for the show. Until the next episode, have fun, be safe, and make good choices. Bye.